I am Elisa Bokeen, and I am a licensed psychotherapist. I am a sex therapist in the Houston, Texas area. My private practice is the Flow and Ease Healing Center, and that is where I do my work. I help people to overcome shame, to overcome past trauma so that they can have healthier, mutually satisfying, pleasure-filled relationships. This is the work that I do every day, and I want to share some of what I have learned along the way from working with couples through my training, around how to have these healthier relationships and how to have more pleasure, healthier sex lives. And so tonight, what I'm going to be talking to you about is why you should be scheduling, as my dear friend Uchenna Osai calls it, sexy time. That's right. I am encouraging you to schedule sex. So if you are listening right now and if you can hear me, please just drop in the chat. If you can hear me, just let me know I can hear you, because I want to make sure that I am not talking and just kind of nobody can hear me. So if anybody can just kind of drop it in the chat, let me know if you can hear me. Okay. All right. So, okay, you can hear me. Perfect. All right. So now I know I'm not just talking to myself. All right. So here's the deal. A lot of the times what I hear from people is the idea that scheduling sex, scheduling time to be with your partner, it feels forced, right? Like a lot of the times I'll hear a lot of resistance around that. And one of the main reasons is that people say, well, that sounds like it's obligatory. That sounds like if we're at the point where we have to actually schedule it, like put it on the calendar, what does that say about our relationship? And one of the biggest complaints that I will hear is that they want things to be organic. They want it to be organic. They want it to be natural. They want it to be how it used to be, right? Like at the beginning, we never planned it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I often work with people around is this idea that it should just kind of happen spontaneously. Because if you think about it, at the beginning of a relationship, first of all, we have a lot more time. Okay, like we have a lot more time and we have a lot more freedom. But as we start to build lives together, especially if you have been with someone for a significant amount of time and you've built a life with them, you have bills with them, you're running a home. And even if you're not, like as adults, our lives are really, really, really busy. And for some reason, we think that sex is just one of those things that should just kind of happen. It should just happen. And if we love each other, then it'll just happen. So first, I want to bust the myth that sex is spontaneous, that it was ever spontaneous, okay? I want you to go back and I want you to think about the beginning of your relationship, okay? And feel free to add some comments here about what it was like at the beginning of the relationship. But like, how many of you at the beginning of the relationship planned your dates, okay? Just kind of like put a hands up in the chat. Let me know if you at the beginning of a relationship with your partner that you have now, did you plan dates or did you just kind of like show up randomly whenever, right? So the majority of us would plan for dates, right? We're going to set aside some time. And within those dates, we knew that maybe things would happen. Maybe there would be the potential, the opportunity for there to be sex down the line. So what did you do? Okay. So you're like, okay, I'm going to see, my baby this weekend. I'm going to see my baby this weekend. And so what would you do? You get all cute. Maybe you went and got waxed or not, like you got the extra cute outfit. Maybe you got some extra sexy lingerie, the cologne that really turns your partner on. You prepared for the possibility of sex, right? Like you knew there might be a chance. So even then, you were preparing and planning for sex. You're calling each other up. You're saying, this Friday, 8 p.m., I'm going to drive by. I'm going to pick you up. We're going to go to dinner. Da, 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 da. You prepared. And part of the fun was the anticipation Like, think about it, like, no, you're at work and tonight you can't wait to see that person. The buildup, the anticipation, the planning of it, that was part of the fun also. And then we want more of that, right? We want more of our partners. We want more of that connection. We want more of that great sex that we're having at the beginning of the relationship. And then we decide, well, let's make this more official. Let's move in together. And then some people get married, and then things start to fizzle. Right? Things start to fizzle and we think, okay, well, something's wrong. Well, that's not necessarily true, because it starts off way up here, right? And we can't wait to see one another. We want to tear each other's clothes off every time we're with one another. So why does it taper off, or why is it so intense? Well, that's part of what happens to kind of bring people together, right? Like this excitement and this chemistry that brings people together. But we can't stay in that state, because I don't know about you, like maybe I'm telling on myself here. And again, like, feel free to let me know if this is you also by putting something in the comments. But at the beginning of a relationship, I might call in sick. If I knew that my baby was going to come over, and, back in the day, I was missing a lot of class in school, right? Like I'm not even going to tell you what my grade was in accounting that first semester of college. Let's just say I had to take that class over again because couldn't keep our hands off one another. But of course, yes, that tapers off. And that is because we got bills to pay. We have lives to run, and nature knows, like, we can't keep it in this state. So that's not necessarily that something is wrong with the relationship. It's just evolved. It's changed. And now we have to be that much more intentional about creating opportunities to connect with one another sexually, right? So why should you be scheduling sex? Because you're busy. Because you're busy. Because your partner is busy. Because at the end of the day, you are tired. You're tired, and you're going to come up with all of the reasons why you rather sleep. And I don't blame you, right? I don't blame you. But anything that is, what do? We make time for it, right? We set aside time for it. I've given this example before, that a lot of times what I will hear is people say, I'm back. I've given this example before where people will say, well, we just want it to be, the vibe to be right. I just want the vibe to be right. Here's the other thing. It's often rare that you and your partner or partners will be in the mood at the same time. Right? Like, because a lot of times we want our bodies to feel the arousal, our mind to be in the mood. We want all of that to be connected. And then we want our partner to be in that space also. And that doesn't always happen, right? And so we have these really high expectations. So when you plan for it, you're really prioritizing it. You're putting time aside. And again, there's rarely anything that's really important to us that we just say, well, we just, let's wait for the vibe to be right. Again, I am Elisa Boquin. For those of you that are just joining, I'm Elisa Boquin. I'm a licensed psychotherapy and sex therapist here in Houston, Texas. And I help people every day to have healthier, mutually satisfying, pleasure-filled relationships. So if I were to have, if somebody reaches out to me and they say, we really want to work with you, me and my partner are having some trouble, and we want to come in and we want to see you. We want you to be our therapist. Okay, great. Imagine if I were to say, well, let's just wait to see when the vibe is right. Let's just see if, like, I'm in the mood that day, you're in the mood, right? Like, if that's how I ran my practice, I probably wouldn't stay in business very long, right? So planning for it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with your relationship. It means that you prioritize your sexy time. All right, so I see a question here. So let's see. How can we be in the mood when reproductive rights are being taken away? Listen, I am with you. I am with you. You know, I have talked about this before with colleagues and with other clients, is that we are living in this perpetual state of trauma, right? Like I feel especially like these last 2 years, it's just like one trauma after another, after another, after another. And it's very difficult when our rights are being directly attacked, right? They're being directly attacked. They're being taken away from us and we don't have comprehensive sex education, you know, and then they're threatening contraception. I fully agree with you that it's difficult to see beyond that. I can tell you for me, for myself, and how I'm able to push past that as a woman of color, as an Indigenous woman who in my lineage, trauma, intergenerational trauma has been something that I have had to learn to live with my whole life, right? Is that what I know for sure is that part of my strength and my resistance comes in being very intentional about the joy that I create for myself. And I think when it comes to pleasure, right, sensual, sexual pleasure, that there is power and there is healing in that. And so I get it. You know, I get that right now, the way that things are, that really impacts us. I can only tell you what has worked for me. And my mindset is that this is part of who I am, you know, our sexual selves. We are sexual beings also. And what I believe for sure is that pleasure is my birthright. And so that is one form of my resistance as well. So I'm concerned about people in abusive and coercive relationships being shamed by the abuser in society for not wanting sex. You know, you make a really great point here. That's a really great point. So what is the difference between obligatory sex, right? Like obligatory sex where unfortunately there are relationships where somebody is being coerced into having sex. That is not what this is. This is not obligatory sex. This is because it's not obligatory if you're able to enjoy it. Right? Like if you are in a relationship that is abusive and that there is coercion and manipulation, that is something very different, right? Like that is something very different. And that's not, I would not recommend that for anybody. But I'm speaking more to the people who maybe their desire has diminished, they are tired, they overall have a good relationship with their partner. We're not talking about abusive relationships, and we're not talking about having like these really, other problems in the relationship. We're talking about folks that are just tired and they are having a hard time connecting. Those are the folks where it's not obligatory because once they get going, once they get started, it's enjoyable, it's pleasurable for both, right? So that's how we kind of distinguish from it being obligatory versus this being something that we're nurturing. But great question. That was a great question or a great comment. So again, as we are thinking about this and you are making more intention of nurturing this aspect of your relationship, think about it as anything else that you prioritize, right? That is important to you. You put it on that calendar. You know, we set that alarm to remind us that we don't miss it. And the other thing to remember is you don't necessarily have to be sexual per se, right? And you're probably like, well, what do you mean? Like, I thought we were doing sexy time. I want you to think about more tapping into the erotic, tapping into cultivating that erotic, sensual, sexual energy. It could be a makeout session. It could be an erotic massage session. It can be sex. You know, it can be just outer course. There doesn't have to be penetration involved. It could be penetration. It could be a mutual self-pleasuring, right? Like the point is to infuse that energy into your relationship and you continue to feed that aspect of yourself. So there you have it. These are my reasons for encouraging you to schedule sex and not thinking of it as an obligatory time, but rather that's my time that I get to spend with my partner or partners that is non-negotiable. Right? It's non-negotiable. This is our time, and we get to experience one another in a way that we might not experience with the majority of people or other people, right? Like this, and this is an aspect of my life that I continue to nurture and to develop. So there you have it, folks. If you have some trouble, if you have difficulty in even communicating to your partner about what it is that you want to explore with them, if sex is a difficult topic for you to discuss, for a lot of people it is. A lot of people don't know how to approach the topic of sex with their partners because it is such a sensitive topic. So I'm making it easy for you, and it's free. It's free. I put together a little handout for you all, and it's a checklist essentially of a bunch of different sexual activities, different ways to play, and I call it, you know what? I keep forgetting what the name is. But basically, it's a bunch of different sexual activities that you can go over with your partner and find out, what are they into? What do they want to explore? Are you willing to try this, right? I will tell you, it gets pretty detailed. It is not an exhaustive list. It is not an exhaustive list. So if there's something in there, some sort of play that you want to do, I always tell people, sex is the adult version of play. It just is, right? Like this should be fun. This is when we get to let go. This is when we get to have fun with one another. So if you're having difficulty talking to your partner about it, go to the link in my bio, and you can download it. And one of the things that I always tell people is that you really want to make sure you are not shaming your partner. You want to make sure you are not shaming your partner when you talk about those things. So that's always my ground rule. If your partner is opening up to you and they're sharing with you some of their fantasies or what they'd like to try, sometimes if you hear something that you were not prepared to hear, if you hear something that's a little off-putting to you, it can be really hard to not shame them. And this is what I mean. You may not say something that you're intentionally trying to shame them, but you might make a face like, you're into that? Like, what? Right? Like, so I want you, before you do this activity, to get really grounded, to remind yourself that you're not going to shame your partner with the things you say, with your facial expressions, with your body language, right? And if they do say something that catches you off guard, that is off-putting, then I want you to take a deep breath, okay? I want you to take a deep breath. I want you to get centered, and I want you to get curious. Okay, because this activity, it doesn't mean that you have to commit to doing anything there. Sometimes just talking about our fantasies is enough to satisfy them, believe it or not. Because some fantasies are best left as a fantasy. But just being able to talk about it and listen to our partners. And so if they do say something that is a little off-putting, or that is like a hard no for you, then what I want you to do is I want you to get curious. Okay, get curious. So ask them, so what about this would be a turn on for you? What about this interests you? What about this makes you want to try it? Like, where is this coming from? So just get curious. You might really learn something new about your partner. And remember, them sharing and them opening up is actually a sign of vulnerability. So really being able to honor their vulnerability is so important. And it will deepen the conversation. It will deepen your intimacy, because intimacy is more than just sex, right? Like, really great relationships are about being able to let our guard down. And I always tell people, intimacy, and to me, you see, it means I can trust you. It means I can be vulnerable with you. It means that I know that when I'm vulnerable with you and I let my guard down, you're going to do right by me, right? That's what that means. And the more I can do that with you, emotionally, physically, sexually, the deeper the intimacy and the more exciting the experience, the more full the experience, the more rich the experience, okay? So no shaming, get curious, click the link in my bio so that you can get that list delivered straight to your inbox, and I will see you again soon.